So if you're thinking about the long game, you've always got to think about the oxytocin rather than the dopamine. How can I create this biochemical romance with my client? It permeates out into your actual life, and like you'll smile more because you'll be making more people happy. I mean, I don't think you can lose. People are so focused on their style and their execution and the things that they output rather than the things that...
Welcome. This is Unfolding, the show where I unfold creative business minds. My name is Marco Pfann, and now I just want you to sit back and enjoy the show. So, welcome. We're back again, and today I have the infamous James Martin, the founder of Made by James, on my podcast, and we're going to have a lot of fun today because we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is how the design education system is failing us. Welcome,
Yes.
James. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm good. I'm good, Marco. Thank you. I love the way you call me famous. I'm not famous. I'm internet famous, but that's like being rich in Monopoly, isn't it? It doesn't really matter. So, no, yeah, I think it's... Yeah, I'm excited to chat. I'm excited to chat today. And education in general, design education especially, is something I'm very passionate about. Excited to dive in.
So I've seen this post from you. I'm just gonna read it. That's just the beginning of that, because that really stood out to me. That was yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
The design education industry is failing talented designers with a focus on fake client role plays, outdated outreach strategies, aggressive sales tactics. It's no wonder the creative humans on this planet are fed up, especially when none of this works in the real world.
Yeah.
Tell me, why do you come to that conclusion?
It's a bold statement, isn't it? And I think, like anything, the bold statements can be analyzed and looked at, which I love as well. So for me, like, as a designer, so I've been in the design industry as a creative human for 20 years. I'm servicing clients all over the world, big, small, indifferent, do you know what I mean? And everything in between. And obviously, I grew up in a design world, that didn't have social media. I grow up in a world now, or grow up, living in a world, we all are in a world that does have social media. I used to have to find out my information from the person above me in the studio or the library. Do you know what I mean? Because the dial-up on the internet is quick enough. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think, obviously, what's happened is technology is moving so quickly. And for me, the reason, like I said, the bold statement of I think the design education industry is failing talented designers is because I think the approach to teaching hasn't evolved as much as the industry has evolved. So the things that are being taught are outdated. I'm very lucky that I get to speak to hundreds of designers, and I have calls with clients every week, and I get to keep my ear to the ground, and I understand the pain points, I understand the things that people are struggling with. And whenever I make a statement like the education system is failing, I think on the whole it is. There are some great people doing some great things, and I could name you of them. I think it's really important that the overgeneralization is such an easy thing to do, and I'm always trying to be very wary of not doing that. But I think on the whole, because of the conversations I'm having, I'm noticing there are some very similar things or very consistent problems that are happening. There's a huge lack of confidence in creative people. They have a lot of self-doubt. They don't trust their process. And the reason they don't trust their process is because when they're taking the things they are taught into the real world, so AKA a client or a project, when the things that they are taught don't work, they blame themselves. They blame the things that they know, and they obviously blame their own creativity. When I don't think creativity is the problem, I think it's the process of how they're being taught, which is the problem. They're not being taught to deal with the unpredictability that the real world brings into the creative process. So they're told, do this, do that, price it this way, price it that way. And then they're being left alone to go and figure it out themselves. Do you know what I mean? And then what happens is a client, sorry, you go, yeah.
What's the unpredictability? Is that the client that comes in?
I personally believe unpredictability is the realness. Do you know what I mean? So when like a designer teaches a designer, for example, on Instagram, it's done in a vacuum. It's done without any kind of real world context. Do you know what I mean? So it's very easy for me to tell another designer, do this, do that. But
Okay.
the problem is that in the real world, there are different personalities, there are different types of clients, there are different types of personality, there are different ways of people work. There are different ways people learn. So when you take one approach and try and put that out to absolutely everybody, it breaks. It might work the odd time, but more often than not, it will break because it's a one size fits all approach. But that's how they're being taught. I think that's how designers are being taught. Like, use this in the real world rather than here are some ideas, then go and create some flexibility in the real world. 'Cause if you're not flexible in the real world, you're going to break. I would say.
So different, that also implies that there are different kind of personalities out there that need different advice, different structures, different things of actually doing those things. And I know, we all know, with designers, creatives, it's a kind of a different breed. Business advice not always blooms the way it should. And one of the reasons, obviously, it's not made for us. How can we change the system? What would a better system look like? A better educational system?
That's a great question. And so what I'm still trying to figure out myself. I think the first part of that is we have to bring clients in. We have to bring the real world in to the education space. We have to, by bringing in that unpredictability to the learning, by doing some live client interviews, by doing some real work, by, like I said, bringing in that unpredictability, I think it will allow designers to be better equipped for the real world when that unpredictability happens. Because I think if we can teach people to deal with the unpredictability, the predictable stuff becomes very easy. So the process, the structure, the methods that are taught, like if you can find a way to get people to that, they're going to be standard, they're going to be always useful, don't get me wrong, but it's the unpredictability that throws those things off. So when we talk about clients and personalities, like, for example, some clients like to read long emails. Some clients don't like reading long emails. Some clients like to watch video. Some clients are very good at communicating. Some clients are not very good at communicating. Now, the problem is when we go in with one approach and we just expect to get the right answers all the time. But the people, like we have friends, everybody's different. We treat people very differently. We talk to certain people and certain, we could be kind of more friendly with certain people. We have to be more detailed with other people. We have to be more kind of aspirational with other people. Do you know what I mean? And clients aren't any different. Like if you just see a client as a person rather than as a client, it's silly to think that we would treat them all the same, effectively, in my eyes, which is
That's
why there
true.
needs to be this idea of these flexible expectations. And, it's like I said, it's not like I'm not sitting here saying that clients should control the creative process. That is not something I'm saying by any means, but I'm saying I think the reason why there is so much friction within a creative process is because designers are taught to not let the client in. So what happens is when you have a creative process and you've got the clients like on the outside, like what happens is like, imagine you're in a friendship group. Do you know what I mean? Like you see a load of people whispering in one group and they're all looking at you and you're in the other group. You're going to get suspicious. You're going to be anxious. You'll
Yes.
be like, what are they talking about? What are they doing? So exactly the same when a client's on the outside. If you don't let them into that process and you don't communicate with them, they're going to micromanage. They're going to be suspicious. They're going to ask you what you're doing all the time. Do you know what I mean? So when I say bringing the clients into the creative process, I don't mean like getting them to dictate it and getting them to hold your hand, but by building a process around them, based on the way they like to communicate and based on like their idea, getting them actively involved in certain parts of the process and really detailing, like I said, the way they want to be spoken to, whether they like to have calls, whether they like to read email, always having bits and pieces in the calendar lined up for them. I think what you can do is you can create a one-of-one process rather than a one-for-all process. And I think like if you can understand like all those friction areas that happen at the beginning stages, like before you even get into the creative process, if you can align, like let's think about some of the friction areas that creative people go through: scope creep, micromanaging, clients not getting back to me, them not reading my emails, blah, 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 all these things that creative people worry about.
Mhm.
Now, if we at the beginning of the process go through this almost flexible expectations kind of idea, how would you like to be communicated with? What are the things you like really spending a lot of time like figuring out all these touch points? When you're actually within the creative process, those friction areas happen very rarely, I would say, and from my experience. So look, it's it takes a lot of soft skills. It takes a lot of, practice. I've been talking to clients for 20 years. And I think this is maybe the other key element that we're approaching upon here is that soft skills aren't taught at school. Soft skills aren't
No,
taught
no.
in education. And also, like, they only really happen if you're actively trying to make them happen. And another thing that I've learned over my time is that, like, every time a designer generally speaks to a client is when there's money involved. And the problem is, when there's money involved, it automatically puts both parties on the back foot because they're already like, especially from a designer, like I might need this work, I need this money to pay my bills. Clients are like, oh, I'm not too sure I should invest. There's automatically this friction, this barrier, and it's called money. And the problem is, there's a lot of people online now, and all they talk about is money. All they talk about is pricing. All they talk about is sales, and all they talk about is this. And don't get me wrong, as a creative, it's really important to understand this business side. But because there's so much focus on money, profit, creativity has gone out the window. So what I always suggest to designers, even whether they've had a client or they haven't had a client, is to just jump on call. Like I have this kind of what I would consider like a sandbox base. So before I've even had a
Mhm.
client, like even every week still, do you know what I mean? I jump on calls with clients who either I've worked with or I don't have a clue who they are, but I open up my calendar and I have a half an hour call. And the kind of premise is I get to learn about them and their industry, and they get to ask me any questions about me and my industry. That's it. No
Right.
money,
Right.
no sales, no anything like that. But all we both get to do is be relaxed and just talk and have
I, lo-
conversations.
I
Do you know what I
love
mean?
that. I really love that frame you just opened up here. That money actually is the thing that puts all the pressure on both sides, really. And you're right. The moment we actually get that out of the way, credits can become more themselves, right? Because the one thing we are not being taught in design school, that's one of the many things we're not being taught, but one of the things we're not even taught in traditional education system is money. How do we talk about money? How do we work with money? And it's right. Like the moment we introduce money, it's really becomes that it's not, we're not together with a client achieving something anymore. It's against the client. All of a sudden, it's this competition. It's like this expectation that I like that. I really like the idea to get the focus on money out of those conversations. Love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I'm not by any means saying that money isn't important because, I think for a long time, creative people have not really understood the importance of valuing themselves and valuing the things that they do for clients. I totally get that because money, you can do simple. You can do a post on social media right now and talk about creative process and it will get this many likes. You'll talk about money in a hook, it will get this many likes. So what's happening is that people know if they talk about money, people are going to engage with their content. So it's money, money. And this is like this is more the kind of system
Right.
I'm fighting. I've had conversations or been in part of conversations where, I hear, designers dissing on client, even when they've never had a client, this tribal mentality that's happening where they're basically like, I like to call it creative mutualism. At the end of the day, like designers need clients and clients need designers. But the only thing that's happening right now is the divide between them is getting bigger and bigger because there are designers online who are openly dissing their clients and slating them online and then wondering why they've got no work. I'm like, this is not good marketing, my friends. This is really not the way forward. This idea of money is essential and it's an important topic. But when we talk, like when it's the first connection, it's the first touch point, when we're talking to a potential client, the focus is money. What that does is it kind of triggers this kind of fight or flight mode in us, this kind of survival mechanism where we're kind of trying to just get through it. And like you can see people clam up, do you know what I mean? And they're like, ultimately, like we both know, and anybody who's been in the industry long enough, like the best thing you can do is build relationships and you can build connections and build friendships, because it's much easier to keep a client than it is to find a new one. So if you do a really good job for a client and build a relationship with them, they'll bring referrals, they'll tell their friends and blah, blah, blah. But the way we're being taught now is that you shouldn't be friends with your clients. You know, they're a transaction. You could be friends with them after they've paid you and stuff like this. But sort of like, well, I do a project and then I'm trying to find another project and I'm trying to find another project where, you know, some of them, you know, I've worked with clients for the last 10 years. Do you know what I mean? They just keep coming back because I'm nice to them and I'll give them the odd freebie and I'll give them my knowledge and then they'll bring more friends to me. Do you know what I mean? So this kind of, it's almost become so like what I would classify like bro marketing. Do you know what I mean? How to get 100K months, you know, use this AI script to make $10,000 tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? This kind of, yeah, now, this dopamine kind of been floating around us for a little bit too long now, where we think that we have to make it tomorrow. Whereas if we focus on the love drug, the oxytocin, you know, build relationships, you know, social bonds, you know, these are the things that build trust. Do you know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
person we need the trust from the most is the client, essentially.
It's also what I see most with the people that come to me is like this short-term focus. And I believe this is, it comes partly to through what you're saying. It's like that everyone is talking about money these days, and this money, because people, we are in a time where money is scarce, projects are scarce, and people focus on that, getting money. Where do I get the next client from? They're anxious, and but what you said is so true. It's like the way out of that is long term focus. It's not that making 100K tomorrow, it's not going to get you anywhere. It's more building those relationships over the longer term. And I can tell you that any of my clients that make a lot of money at the moment are the ones that invested building relationships for the last three years. And they're good now. It's like
Yeah.
they have client base, they have trust in the market. Really, it's like the trust in the market that you really miss. And I think you're right. Those are the skills we're not taught, like none of the soft skills. We're not even aware that this is important when we get out of design school. How was that for you when you've been in the industry long enough, and you might remember when you got out of the industry, what changed from your mindset from back then to now? What are the things, the one or two things that you think the next generation needs to understand?
Cool. Good question. I think over 20 years, we change a lot. One thing, I think kind of go in stages, don't you? So you go, I know nothing to I know everything to I know I will never know everything. So we kind of naturally go through these stages, don't you? And I'm definitely at the latter end now. So beginning, it was all learning. It was all very exciting. It was all very new. Like as a young man, 20-year-old, early 20s with no family, kids or anything to worry about apart from me, like the pressure was slightly off. Do you know what I mean? I could get by on X
Mm.
amount of money a week. Do you know what I mean? Now, all I needed was a couple of jobs and I was working in an agency and I wasn't earning a lot of money, but hey, is what I had. Do you know what I mean? And then what happens is as you evolve and you go further in your career, ego kicks in, doesn't it? You're like, well, I'm getting some bigger jobs. Do you know what I mean? I'm winning these projects. And then you think, fucking hell, I know everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm right, clients are wrong. Fuck you. Do you know what I mean? Like, take on the world. And then what happens is you grow up a little bit. Do you know what I mean? And now I'm in my 40s. I know that I literally know nothing. and I need to keep learning. I need to keep changing. So I think during those kind of periods, like you have different stages of like perspective and self-reflection. And, I think those are the kind of periods for me that have changed my mindset is understanding, obviously over a period of 20 years, change that as a person and also as a designer and as a business owner and as somebody, not necessarily fallen into the education space, grew an audience by accident, grew a personal brand by accident, then realize, well, hang on a minute, maybe I need to sort my shit out because people actually listen to me. So getting sober and stopping taking drugs all the time and stopping drinking all the time was something I had to go through. And that's the other side of it. Is like, I think, not that it annoys me because I can't control it. There's so many people pretending they've got fucking life figured out. Do you know what I mean? And it's nobody's got it figured out. We're all making this shit up. Like nobody knows what's going on. We're all just trying to survive every day. And that's why I never try and diss anybody else or to complain too much about what others are doing or saying that I'm better. I'll always say I'm different. I'll never say I'm better. Do you know what I mean? Because everybody is just trying to figure out. Everybody's trying to pay bills. Everybody's trying to figure out who they are. So I think it's really that have helped me change like the way like I see the world a little bit. But also like now it's so easy to be distracted right now. It's so noisy. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you could go and sign into an app and you could be there for 25 minutes, look at the clock and go like, what just happened? And I found that's an hour of my day gone, and I've done nothing. I've just been sucked in to this thing. So for me, like especially over the last 5 years, is planning. Like I've got a very meticulous plan now that I'm following. I know the kind of person I want to be. I know the things I want to do. I have a 10-year goal, but a vision. But that's then brought back. Like I can't. I mean, so much stuff can happen in 10 years, can't it? So I bring it back to 3 years, and then I break my 3-year plan in like a 1-year plan. Then I break my 1-year plan into a 90-day window. So I work in those 90-day windows, and because I have the things I need to achieve in that 90 days, the targets, the measurables, the metric, and those are the only things I'm focusing on to help me push my business forward. If I'm achieving those things, then I don't have to worry about all the noise. I can actively now cheer people up and go, fuck, well done. I'm glad you're doing shit. Whereas before, yeah, it might have always been from a place of jealousy before, like, oh, like, why are they getting that and why am I not? That's where the ego thing
Yeah.
comes. Do you know what I mean?
I like what you just said, like it's a path, right? Once you have a plan, you actually make progress towards the plan. It becomes not relevant what others do anymore because you're on your own path now. And so many designers out there, they don't have a vision. They don't have that 10-year vision. They don't know what they want to grow into. Obviously, you look right and left and you're jealous of anyone that's actually getting ahead of you while missing the point that they have a goal and you don't. I like the 10-year goal, the 3-year goal, breakdown, the 90-day window. That's super smart. Here's something I'm struggling with, and maybe you can help me. Like, I want to give my people a new focus. And we both know that the quality of the work is important to a certain stage, but it's not everything, right? And then money is important as well, but again, not everything. So what's connecting all those things? What should creators focus on to actually have a more fulfilled life?
Great question. And you can tell I haven't been prompted with any questions beforehand, so I've got to make this up on the spot. I would probably suggest that I think, when we talk about design, when we talk about the creative world, the creative industry, it is a service-based industry. So our job is to service our client. And if you think about, I always have liked to bring focus back, the hospitality space. And that's how, when I think about the educational stuff that I'm going to be doing, like when I think about the thing that's most important, it's about creating like these one-off amazing experiences for my client. Do you know what I mean? So I know when I do that, they will rave about me or they'll rave about the stuff I do. And they'll also come back. So if you think about a hotel that you might go to or a destination you might go to or a restaurant you might go to, there are certain reasons why you go back. Now, they might be something as simple as like they know your name. Like there's like some of the best experiences I've had in kind of going away and staying at a particular place is like the meticulous service that they give. Do you know what I mean? And like it's all of
Yeah.
these things, like these like one-off experiences that make me talk about that place to my friend. Oh, you should go here. Oh, you should try this, or you should do this. If we reflect that back onto our own industry and we think about, okay, so as designers, like, how can we create the best experiences for our client? What we think, like the things that, like building a logo, like building a visual identity, building a website, like those are the things that are expected of us. Those are the things that we're supposed to do. But what are the unexpected things that we can do that elevate the exceptional service and elevate the exceptional experience that is working with Made by James or Marco rather than someone over here or someone over here? And like sending them, like you can do things, for example, like when you onboard your client, maybe ask them a question about their hobby, for example. If they'll think it's absolutely random and absolutely pointless, but they'll put an answer in gardening or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, why has he asked me that? You know, I haven't clue why he's asked me that. But what you've got is you've got a really good little golden nugget here. So what you can do is halfway through the project, because what happens with a project is at the beginning, it's high energy. So this is energy and this kind of project length. So you and the client at the beginning of the project start with super high energy. And then what happens is it doesn't matter how well it goes, the energy drops off towards the end, doesn't it? So what
Yeah.
I think is a really good idea, like what you need to do is you need to keep that energy high. So you need to add in these little energy boosters during a project. So talking about this onboarding, asking them about their hobbies, and they just think it's a random thing. You know? But what you can do is halfway through the project, let's say that they said gardening, you can send them a little book on gardening. Do you know what I mean? It will cost you $10 for the book, a few bucks to send, you know, maybe let's say 20, $25 all in. You send them that unexpected gift. Suddenly Marco goes from here to here. Do you know what I mean? And it's these little energy boosters. There's
Yeah.
these little, like what you could classify as selling the sawdust. Do you know what I mean? Like I sent my sketches of my logos and of my sketchbook to my clients and they weren't expecting it. And when they received it, they got it framed and they put it on their wall and they tell everybody about it. It's like doing these
Like the
little
hand
things.
drawn, you sent them that your hand drawn sketch. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's a nice gift. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's these little like so when we talk about the experience, that's the thing we need to elevate. It's the stuff that isn't expected of us, is what I would suggest designers should work on the most.
I love it. So you just solved my puzzle here. I got the missing piece. Thanks for that. But that's really
So
what we want to focus on, like on. I like that the experience, right? This is where the soft skills really come in. This is what you would do. Those are the kind of things I did with my girlfriends when we started going out. Those are the experiences. You want to do those things.
yeah,
I like that.
because it's what it is.
Create a whole.
It's
You
the
go.
things that you remember, isn't it? It's the things that, you know, when we talk about the oxytocin rather than the dopamine. Do you know what I mean? The oxytocin is the social bond, the trust. Do you know what I mean? It's the long lasting love. Do you know what I mean? That's what we
Yeah.
want. That's what we need when we build relationships. Do you know what I mean? The kind of quick fix or the quick wins on a project or the making as much money as possible. Dopamine, they don't last as long. So if you're thinking about the long game, you've always got to think about the oxytocin rather than the dopamine. It's such a stupid analogy, but I always think of it like that, like it that way. How can this biochemical romance? How can I create this biochemical romance with my clients? But it's not just your client. Like it's all, if you think about doing these wonderful things for your client, like imagine doing that more for your friends and doing that more for your family members and doing that more. Like I think if you take this kind of mindset into your business, it permeates out into your actual life and like you'll smile more because you'll be making more people happy. Do you know what I mean? And if you can
Mhm.
make more people happy, do you know what I mean? And like, it's great. Do you know what I mean? I don't think you can lose. And the other thing is, Marco, I believe that's the difference. Like those are the things that take you from a pond this big to a pond this big. And when we're talking about like how our industry is moving, like how are you going to stand out? How are you going to be different? People are so focused on their style and their execution and the things that they output rather than the things that they can do that nobody else would be willing to do, which is send their clients gifts and create these wonderful experiences. They don't do it because they think it's going to eat into my profit or take too much time. Do you know what I mean? But that client will come back to you forever.
Well, they have this false belief that this would is not professional. You wouldn't do that, right? It's like this distance. A lot of people create that distance when it's about business. Money comes in and people all of a sudden become distant. I like this approach of sending them gifts, caring about people, making them your friends, bringing in that oxytocin. This is a very nice approach. So tell me, how do you do that in your daily business? Because you still work with clients. Do you send them gifts, or what are the secrets that you use?
I've just told you a few of them. You know, onboarding, asking them a few hobbies. Do you know what I mean? Sending them books, sending them sketches. But there's even like little things that you can do. Let's go back to this kind of hospitality, this kind of concierge kind of thing. One of the nicest things I can bring in into my kind of experience now are from the things I've actually already experienced in other places. So let's say I'm going to go to a hotel. Do you know what I mean? And what they will do is they will send me, do you know what I mean, a little email reminder, or they'll phone me maybe like a day before, and they'll say, "Look, it's supposed to rain tomorrow. We're excited to see you at 3 p.m. for check-in. Make sure you bring a brolly. Make sure you bring your Wellington boots because the weather's not looking
Mm,
too great." Do you know what I mean? Little things like that. Okay, so I'm like already, yeah. And when I get to the door, they call me by my name because they know my registration number, so they can see me come up, and they planned all this. Do you know what I mean? So when I do turn up, they call me by my name, and I'm like, feel fucking great. Do you know what I mean? Let's think about that in a creative process right now. So what I would do is like when I've got a discovery call planned with my client, do you know what I mean? Rather than there might be like sometimes like you might onboard them and then 3 weeks later you have the call, or 2 weeks later you have the call. Why not do exactly the same thing, which is what I've done? You know, a day before or 48 hours before, you can email them and you can say, the call's going to be, excited to chat to you. The call's going to be a couple of hours. Make sure you have a bottle of water or any snacks and make sure you go for a wee beforehand because we're going to be sitting down and chatting for a while. We'll probably have a break halfway through. You know, these are the things that are on the list. This is the agenda. Like just that one little thing before the discovery call, for example, elevates you and the service that you're offering. Do you know what I mean? You've got them prepared for this thing. Because what can happen sometimes, and in the past when I didn't do this, for example, like people would go halfway through, they go, I'm thirsty. Can I just go and get a drink? Or can I go to the toilet? Or can I go and do that? You know, especially if it's a long call. So what you do is you
yeah.
prepare them for that call. You let them know what's happening. You let them know what you're going to cover. There's little things like this that elevate the service, I would say.
So how do we teach that to the next generation? Like, how do we teach those soft skills? You said something in the beginning, you have to bring the client in the education system. How can it look like? How can we get the client in and create this real experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting concept and one that I'm fully in myself right now. It's a really interesting topic on the how now. So at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm talking to loads of clients and I'm learning from them, and I am putting that into my content and into the things that I'm going to be doing. Now, I've also thought about doing like live interviews with clients. Do you know what I mean? And putting them on YouTube or whatever. But then there are so many wankers on the internet market. Do you know what I mean? Like for me, like I don't mind. I put out free content and free knowledge all the time, and I still get people actively abusing me online. And the thing is, I don't want to put clients in that firing line. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
it's a really treacherous path because there are so many. people who will naturally just gravitate towards being more angry or more aggressive. Like, I don't want to put clients in that firing line or give people a platform to be able to smash clients, because people will naturally do that. So for me, it's about bringing them into a safe environment. Just like when I be doing a design project, I create a safe environment for my clients so they can trust me. Do you know what I mean? I let them know that they
Hmm.
are heard. I let them know that they're part of the process. Blah, 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 blah. I think that has to be done within this education space as well. There has to be safe spaces for people, safe spaces for clients to be involved in. There has to be, yeah, like I said, just has to be done in a very, because there's such a divide right now between designers and clients. There's a lot of designers that, like I said, actively hate on clients. Do you know what I mean? So there's so much friction there to open up this kind of audience, like for example, at Made by James, talking about it live. I know what would happen. Unfortunately, there'd be a lot of negative designers out there who don't understand the importance of smashing them. And I'm not going to put that in that kind of
Mm.
area. So I think it has to be done with a little bit more kindness. And again, like I said to you, Marco, I'm still figuring this shit out. I know it's important, and I know I've been doing it in ways that I know I can control right now. But again, like if it's
Yes.
too controlled, does that change the unpredictability of it? I still think there are layers to this. Obviously, if you come and join a program that I have built, clients are going to be in that live because I know the people in there. I know that they are invested in this kind of idea, and I know they're looking to learn. So clients are going to be very much
Mm.
live in that environment. When it's free content, there's only so much that I can do because of the opinions of others. You know what I mean? So I think it's
Yes,
just trying to
that's true.
find a balance, but I really do believe it's the right way forward. I believe that we can learn more from our clients than we actually believe. Just simple things like asking, like I jump on calls with clients every week still, and people that I'm not even working with. And I ask them things like, how do you go about looking for a designer? What are the things you look for in a designer? Like, where do you search for designers? Like, why would designers not want to know
Yeah.
where clients are searching for them? They just presume. I speak to so many designers who work in a particular niche, and they're talking about how they create all this content and they show up every single day. And I ask them, like, where are your clients? Where are your clients looking? They don't know. They've never asked them.
They
Do you know what I
don't-
mean?
That's a good
They've
question.
fallen
It is
into
a good
this trap.
question.
It's a great
Yeah.
question. It's a fucking great question. Like, is there? But it's obvious. Do you know what I
Where,
mean?
well, where do your clients come from? Obviously, I guess LinkedIn, Instagram at the moment, right?
A
Where do
lot of
you get your
referrals.
clients from?
A lot of referrals,
Both.
Marco. A lot
No?
of word of mouth. The good experiences there. And then there's a pretty some from the website. There's a lot of traffic now, which is
Yeah.
good and bad. I still get the odd person asking me to do free work. I still get the odd person asking me to build them a website, do their animation, and build their whole visual identity for $100. I still get that. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't matter. So yeah, bit of the social marketing from that side, word of mouth, and then obviously client referrals, which is also another good one.
So you previously talked about the 10-year vision you have. I'm not going to ask you about that, should stay private, but you also talked about the 90-day window. So what's your next 90-day window? What you're trying to accomplish as the next step?
So in every 90-day window. So let's take a year, for example. So I have certain
Mhm.
goals and things I want to achieve this year. And that might be build 3 courses, make X amount of money, grow my newsletter, grow this audience, create this amount of tools, do this. So I have like a year's plan. So then we have the 90-day windows, which are essentially Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. So at the moment, we've literally just started Q3. So that is the
Mhm.
90-day window we're in right now. And for me, in this 90-day window, apart from, I'm not going to say any monetary targets because I don't think those matter. I have a goal for revenues. I have a goal for how much I want to grow my newsletter. I have a goal for building my first program that's launching on the 1st of September, like a boot camp, 12-week boot camp. I'm going to be launching an animation course And there's obviously then a load of internal things that we're also doing. Like we're going to be running some ads. We're going to be diving into some kind of creating some funnels and some marketing bits internally. Do you know what I mean? So those are the only thing. I mean, they're big things, don't get me wrong, but those are the only things that
Yeah.
we're focusing on. Do you know what I mean? Only things we're
Uh,
focusing on over the next 90 days. Because, for example, if I know I want to grow my newsletter by 10,000 this quarter in this 90-day window, I can't do that by sitting on my ass and doing nothing. So what am I
yeah.
doing to build my newsletter? Do you know what I mean? So even like within these kind of rock, we call them, like these are the obstacles. These are things we want to achieve. These are things that are going to move the business forward the most. Like that newsletter one has a load of things I have to do to get to that. But every week I'm tracking
Mm.
it. Oh, we grew by 200, or we grew by 300, or we lost some followers, some subscribers, or we grew by 400. So every single week I know exactly where we are. And that's how you do it. You have a call with your team. I have a call with my team every single week, and we see where we are. There's a book called Traction, and that's what we are running within our business. It talks about these 90-day windows. It's a fantastic book for anybody looking to build a bit of structure into their world.
I like also this goal, and I'm not sure if you run the OKR systems or anything like that, but I like the idea of the 90-day window, because if you just say 10,000 followers, right? Newsletter having 10,000 more followers, that's a lot. And getting there with 200, 300 people a week is probably not going to get you there.
No.
So with also, it gives you a measuring line. It's like, okay, you want to get to 10,000 and we are growing by 200 a week. We need to do something different. We need to take a bolder step. We might need to take some risks here even. Tell me
Yeah.
about risks. Tell me about risks.
So yeah, I was going to say, but for example, with 10,000, what you do is you break that down into, so what's that? That's 3,300 a month, theoretically. So that becomes an easier goal.
Mhm.
Okay, well, now let's break that down into a week. That's like 8, 16, 24, maybe 800 a week is what we need. Do you know what I mean? So when you take these targets, you then break them down. Risks. I am not a big believer in risk. I do believe in calculated risk. Like
Okay.
everything that I do, there's a method to it, and there's a strategy behind it. And I think if you have a plan, there aren't a lot of risk. So I think they become a lot more strategic. A risk would basically be me saying to you right now, Marco, I've decided to quit the design world altogether and start a restaurant. That would be a risk. Do you know what I mean?
That would
But
be a risk.
me doing the
Yeah.
things I'm doing right now are calculated risks. They come with a lot of background and a lot of data. Do you know what I mean? A lot of research and a lot of conversations. So the things I'm doing now, there's
Mm.
not a huge amount of risk in them. It's just down to execution. Oh, but there's always a risk. Is such a funny word, I think. So there's obviously always an element of risk. It's risky for me to drive to the shops in the morning, so I might get hit by another car. Do you know what I mean? Like every time you do something, it's risky, isn't it? Getting up, I might fall over and break my head. I don't. I mean, obviously, I'm going off tangent here, but my point is like everything that I'm doing now has been methodically planned out and strategized, so it negates a lot of the risk. Yes, not. They might do great. They might not do so great. But the things I'm building are the things I know people need. The
Mhm.
conversations I'm having, I know are important. The things I'm doing, I know are important.
Yeah, I like it. So it's really like what you just defined is because you're on this path, you have this experience, you have this expertise. It's just the next step, right? There's not that much risk. But if you would break with the design world, you would do something different. That would be a risk because you don't know anything about that business. But going forward, like progressing, you're on the path, you progress, you evolve. That's the lesser risk. That's a calculated risk, really. I like this idea, this framing, this concept. Yes. Well, I think a lot of creatives need to understand that this is a process. We are not done. We will never be done in the creative. As a creative person, as a business person, there will never be this moment where you say, yes, no, I'm done. I get a certificate. Well, whatever it is, right? It's not, you will not be there. It's not that. It's more this involvement. This. So tell me, what's something you want to reveal that's still on your agenda? Where do you want to? What do you want to grow into? Who do you want to be in a few years down the road?
Um, I know you mentioned like about the 10-year goal and that being for me, but it actually my 10-year goal is not for me. It's for the design world. And the thing that kind of
Like,
North Star that I'm heading towards is free design education for the world. That is my ultimate mission.
mhm.
And I mean, I do elements of that, like content and YouTube is coming back. There's elements that are free, but ultimately, what I would love, that is the world that I want to create in free design education. And that is the thing
That's
I'm
something.
striving
Yeah.
toward. Now, whether I do it, whether I manage to do it, I don't know, but it's something that I'm going to try my fucking hardest to do. And even if there's elements like I do right now, which are free courses and free content, free YouTube and all the rest of it, like there's always going to be an element of it, but I want to keep always ramping it up. That could be there could be elements of it where I build schools that are free to attend, whether I sponsor a generation of designers to go through college or university that a college and university would have to change for me to sponsor them to go through it. But maybe I can create my own university that they can come to and learn for
Yeah, that's
free.
something.
You know what I mean? Like maybe there's all sorts of like different layers to it. As I said, the 10-year kind of vision is there for a reason because it's what wakes me up and makes me come into the office every morning. But like what that looks like, I'm not too sure yet because it's impossible to predict what's going to happen over the next decade. But I know that's where I'm going.
That's a very, how do I say this? This is a very generous goal because it helps the whole industry. I like that. So we're coming to the end of this little interview, but here's one more question I ask every one of my guests. And the question is, what's the one thing, what's the message you want to leave for the audience?
Effort is free.
Oh, would
So
you
there's
mind diving
something.
into this a bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's to be fair, I usually got a signet ring on, which is like my made by. I've got my logo on it, and it's like a gold logo, but it's getting cleaned at the jeweler right now. But inside it there's inscribed unpredictable education, because that's what I want to bring to the world, and effort is free. And what I mean by effort is free is that every day we have a choice to move forward or stay where we are. And that could be doing something small, that could be doing something big, but as long as you're doing something like so, the idea of effort is free, is that it's up to you how much effort you put in to the places and to the person
Mm.
you want to become. And that's your choice. Like if you're a little bit ill and you still go to work, good on you. If you're a little bit ill and you could go to work, but you choose not to because you want to stay in bed and watch Netflix all day because that's easier,
Yeah.
everything. Do you
So
know what I
that
mean?
I like
But
it. This that's
everybody's it's up to them, isn't it?
it puts the responsibility on the person, right? It shows you like there's potential. You can become something, whatever you want, what you make your mind believe you want to be. And but the effort is the way, right? It's like this discipline to put in the effort. It's not like being this genius, but really taking step by step and getting there, and not getting distracted by those shiny objects, by people talking about money and making money in the next 10 days. That's not like next 10 weeks. That's not the time spirit really. I like
No,
from effort.
effort effort is free. Like you said, it's you have. I think it's easy to, and I understand how distracting it is for people, and there's so much information flying around. But you've got to take ownership. Do you know what I mean? It's very easy
Yes.
to blame or put blame or create an excuse. And there are things that go right and are things that do go wrong. I think I'm very in tune with the fact that I know I'm going to die and I know we're all going to die. And I personally don't want to leave. any stone unturned. I want to do everything I
Cool.
can to be all I can be. And I don't, the most common thing you hear when people are on their deathbed or they have a near death experience, they always say, I wish I did, or I wish I did this, or I wish I did that. Like, I don't want to wish for anything when I die. I just want to know that I gave it my all.
And you do a lot. I can tell from the outside. There's a lot going on. You just mentioned you have all those free courses. I took a look at one of them. They're really good. And I also had. And you just mentioned you're going to launch a program. When was that? In September. You
Yeah,
want to
September
quickly say
1st.
something
Nobody
about?
knows about it. You're the first person who's heard about it because we haven't started talking about it yet. But that's yeah.
What
Next
about it?
week or over the next few weeks, we're going to be starting to talk about. But yeah, it's going to be based around all the things that we've talked about, which is like getting designers to focus on their internal transformation, creating brilliant experience for their clients, helping them understand clients better, helping them build better processes, helping them do all the things we've chatted about today is what the program's going to be about. So it's very exciting. Calculated risk, Mark.
Calculated risk. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. James, thank you for being on this interview, on this podcast. It was an amazing conversation. I would love to have you again sometime. For today, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll be back, mate. I'll be back. You know that.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Marco Fun, and I hope to see you all again on our next show where we unfold creative business minds.